not many people are in my situation. There's not that many people who admit that I'm in the situation that I'm in. There's not many people to turn to talk about what's been done to me. But there are plenty of reminders. Um, for example, the way the people in the sandbaggers and their ilk who are banging on and on and on about the terrible suffering in Gaza stand firm behind Jill Stein, for example, whose name was used in the nerve poison script of Gail Burston, which was about the AIDS attack. And they woo-hoo for John Lennon to justify attacking her victim on behalf of her. It never manages to pierce the armor of forgetfulness, never fails to pierce the armor of forgetfulness when Palestinian women on the marches for Gaza give me innuendos about Rosa for Gweener, or when the Lebanese feminazis take a time out to throw a poison dart at my enigma as a reminder that they empowered Nosferatu and let him go, slapping him on the wrist, as Thos Hale would say, and don't do it again. Stupid fuckheads like Galloway who slapped. No, don't talk about John. Then he's a holy icon, and we'll let the people who started AIDS go. And don't do it again, Netanyahu. And now, of course, the killdozer has arrived, and they're getting the lash that they stood by clapping when it was used on someone else. And that someone else was a symbol. Yes, a symbol of the anti-Lenin in America who bemoaned Nanking at the expense of the sacred Japanese Tojo Ronin wife. And you can see he's linked to Hiroshima. And they have a Tacoma Dome at the Magic Mountain. Remember the story? They were going to blow up the mountain, Mount Ida, or whatever it is, Ida, as a symbol, right? And the Kirkag Reducer has the NAACP applauding Muhammad Ali's anti-Louis nuclear bomb directed at their grade school children. As surely as every school in Gaza was demolished. Come on, Aaron Dixon, sing along. Every school in Gaza was demolished. Yeah, the Aaron Dixon Glee Club. Every school in Gaza was demolished. We're going to blow up the Magic Mountain of Tacoma for the Kirkag Reducer. Yippee! Woo! And don't you ever impugn Jill Stein. She's the holy innocente. Now, getting by some of the Seattle, I lived in Seattle for a couple of decades, just about, and they never failed for a single minute. There was never a minute that they failed to be absolute retards about every single thing that I had reported and uncovered had happened. Absolute retards. I'm doing like this here to absolute retardation. Never failed for an instant. I mean, I could rehearse the whole story about how they banned me from school and all yada, yada, yada. All praise for Nosferatu, who yada, bappy, dat. Never failed. But I have time. Yeah, the things that like the guy was sobbing over his brother's body really hit Matt Kennard. And he'll make that a storyline in the narrative. After this, what are we going to do? Now, brainstorm. Well, let's cut and paste that paragraph to here. And Ritter on Hein Rajab. But there are things the girl, from to get off the start. Yeah, Putin realizes and he knows a retard, but he's like this with him. Trying to understand what happened. Now, constructing the narrative is this tonic of the issue. That's just what goes on. The girl cried over her bird. The very touching girl who said nobody cares, who hasn't been heard from. The girls who stood up, say something, brushing their hair, and then died. The endless burglaries, the humiliation and diminishment of every single person in the pretzel of the AIPAC's dominion, indomitable dominion over all of us, because of the stupids in the police department, because of the administrators who kowtow to Jewish whisper campaigns about anything. They never stop lying. When I was growing up, it was one lie after another. Bongos of lies came from the Jewish community constantly. People who drove me out of town were caught ripping off the museum for millions of dollars. Did the retards in Seattle pause a minute, like the nuns in Ken Russell's Orgy? Pause a moment when the ashes of Christ turn out to be a fake. They pause, and then they get back to their frenzy. Did Seattle even pause for a minute when John Schulman was arrested? Nuh-uh. They went right because they are inhibited to even a second, even 1 second, even 1 nanosecond. Must not be wasted on maturity or responsibility. They must endure absolute retardation from start to finish, from high to low. Seattle, Washington. But what probably happened is Egypt and Biden and Trump and Putin conspired with Netanyahu to set the supernova rave up as a final symbol of the destruction of, by AIDS, of the licentious libertinage that Lenin unleashes on lemmings and they Houdini. So you have Shiva, Mick Jagger comes to Tel Aviv, dancing on the graves of the people who he eliminated by convincing them of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. When Bowie, made them the ever-circling skeleton family with his rock and roll genocide of the AIDS attack. That's what the supernova was. Hamas unleashed Nosferatu's Nazi establishment on Gaza to get even for Arab Springs Ooster of Mubarak. And the brainies around were like, oh, we can make narrative of that. Yeah, and it's very fake, as you could call him Mubarak's revenge. So you have these people, who are doomed to be winos like Galloway and Owen Jones, bemoaning Gaza after doing nothing but rolling out a red carpet for Netanyahu from the AIDS attack. They refused to question Seattle or the croquet Greguster. Absolutely refused. So what I think happened was Egypt conspired with these people to, they were the wing nuts of the fundamentalist tripartite, the Christian Zionists, the neo-Nazis in Israel, the Russians hedging their bets, tycoons, as Russian tycoons do hedge their bets. Working with McCartney, as was obvious from Camille Believe's fourth place storyline in 2020 when they went on beyond zebra about COVID-19 into the Ukraine Donbass. And of course, Don's base was saying whoosh. Tony Levin was saying, right here, man, could have saved John Lennon. Multitudes are hungry. Weapons of mass destruction. Soon to be another ice age. Virginity proves right. And Hamas triggered Nosferatu so that the huddled masses of Arabia would be chastened about Arab Spring. Mubarak said, no, that was Nazi. And Obama contributed. Greta Thunberg's best friend, contributed, tear gas and drones and so on because he's a mature. He's not one of these airy fairies like Martin Luther King. No, no. He knows east from west and up and down. He's a moral good time. Yeah. And CERN releases the feathered cylinders to float into the circles of Biden Pond. And Eno says, that's one for the bush of Caspers. Woo! And they get back to their Truman Show, which has ways of making record play and ways of cutting and pasting the record so that it's seamless. Plastic reality from Hollywood.